They heard whispers in the abandoned village. What happened next will scare you. The sun was setting over the dusty hills of rural Ghana when our four-wheel drive finally broke down. Perfect timing. Kofi, our driver, tried the engine again. Nothing but a sad clicking sound. I looked at my two friends, Emma and Nee, who had convinced me to join this adventure to document forgotten villages for their university project. How far are we from Akwamu? Emma asked, checking her phone. No signal. Kofi pointed to a hill about 2 kilometers away. The village should be just beyond that rise. But his voice trailed off, his eyes darkening. But what? I asked. Akwamu was abandoned 20 years ago. Strange things happened there. My father told me never to go near it after dark. Nee laughed, adjusting his camera bag. Come on, man! We're university students, not children scared of folktales. I wasn't so sure. Growing up with my grandmother's stories of spirits and ancestral magic had left a mark on me despite my education. But with the sun disappearing and no cell service, we had little choice. We'll walk to the village, find shelter for the night, and figure this out tomorrow, Emma decided. As we gathered our backpacks, Kofi refused to join us. I'll sleep in the car. No money is worth entering Akwamu at night. What happened there? I asked. Why was it abandoned? Kofi's eyes darted nervously to the darkening sky. They say the village chief made a deal with a river spirit for prosperity. When he failed to pay his debt, the spirit took everyone all at once. Some say you can still hear them whispering, trapped between worlds. Nee rolled his eyes, but I noticed Emma's fingers close around the protection amulet she always wore. I wished I hadn't left mine at home. We'll be back tomorrow with help, I promised Kofi. The walk took longer than expected. Night had fully descended by the time we crested the hill and saw Akwamu below us, dark silhouettes of mud brick houses against the moonlit landscape. No lights, of course. Just empty doorways like black mouths waiting to swallow us. Perfect for our documentary, Nee whispered, already filming. Abandoned places tell the best stories. Let's find the chief's house, Emma suggested. It should be the largest building, probably in the center. As we entered the village, a strange heaviness pressed against my ears, as if the air itself had thickened. Our flashlight beams cut through darkness, revealing homes left in eerie suspension, cooking pots still beside cold fire pits. Wooden stools arranged as if waiting for families to return. It really does look like everyone just vanished, Emma whispered. That's when we heard it. A sound so faint I thought I'd imagined it whispers, like dozens of overlapping voices speaking to softly to understand. I froze. Did you hear that? I asked. Nee and Emma stopped walking. In the silence that followed, the whispers grew more distinct. It's just wind through the houses, Nee said. But his voice had lost its confidence. We pressed on toward the village center, the whispers following us like invisible companions. We found the chief's house larger than the others, with elaborate carvings on the support posts. The door hung open at an odd angle, as if something had tried to tear it off. We'll stay here tonight, Nee declared, stepping inside before Emma, or I could object. The interior was thick with dust and cobwebs. A large room opened to smaller chambers. Wooden masks and ceremonial items still hung on the walls. In the center stood a massive chair, the chief's seat of power carved with symbols I recognized from my grandmother's stories. Protection wards and channels for communing with spirits. Don't touch anything, I warned, remembering Kofi's story. Especially not that chair. Nee was already setting up his camera equipment. This is amazing! The documentary will be incredible. Emma moved closer to me. Something feels wrong here. Quame. Like we're being watched. I felt it 2 eyes following our movements from the shadows. The whispering had stopped, replaced by a heavy silence that seemed to listen to us. We laid out our sleeping bags in the main room, too exhausted to worry further. Nee fell asleep immediately, but Emma and I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Do you believe Kofi's story? She whispered about the river spirit. Before I could answer, a sound came from outside footsteps circling the house. Soft at first, then more distinct. Not animal, human. Emma grabbed my arm. Someone's out there. I sat up, heart pounding. The footsteps stopped directly outside our door. Hello? I called, trying to keep my voice steady. Is someone there? The whispers returned louder now, urgent, still incomprehensible. But somehow I knew they were trying to warn us. Beside me, Nee stirred. What's going on? Listen, I whispered. The footsteps resumed, moving away from the door. Without discussing it, the 3 of us grabbed our flashlights and moved to the doorway. Our beams cut through darkness, revealing nothing but empty dirt pots between silent houses. There, Emma pointed. At the edge of our light, a figure stood with its back to us, the silhouette of a man wearing what appeared to be a chief's ceremonial robe. As our lights found him, he began walking away. Hey! Nee called, already stepping outside. Nee, wait! I hissed, but he was already following the figure, camera in hand. Emma and I had no choice but to follow. The figure led us through the village, always remaining at the edge of our light, never turning. The whispers grew louder as we walked, coming from inside the houses we passed. Help us! Trapped! The river waits. I could understand them now, and my blood turned cold. The figure stopped at a pathway leading out of the village toward the sound of running water. He turned slightly, just enough for us to see his profile hollow-eyed, skin like dried leather stretched over bone. Not alive, not dead. Something else. Then he continued down the path. Nee followed, mesmerized. I grabbed his shoulder. Stop! This is exactly how horror movies end, I whispered fiercely. This is exactly how award-winning documentaries are made, he countered, shrugging off my hand. If there's a river spirit story here, I want proof. The path descended into a grove of trees toward the sound of rushing water. The canopy blocked the moonlight, leaving only our flashlights to guide us. The air grew damp, heavy with the smell of mud and rotting vegetation. The figure stopped at the riverbank and finally turned to face us. In the harsh light of our beams, I wished he hadn't. His face was half consumed by darkness, not shadow, but a living darkness that moved beneath his skin. Only when I remained human, filled with such profound sadness that I had to look away. You wear protection, he said, his voice like gravel, looking at Emma's amulet. Wise. The others did not. Who are you? Nee asked, filming everything. I was chief of Akwamu. Now I am its prison warden. He gestured to the dark water. She waits below, always hungry, always collecting her debts. As if responding to his words, the river's surface rippled. The water began to glow with an unnatural blue light, illuminating what lay beneath hundreds of faces pressing up from below. mouths open in silent screams. The missing villagers. Emma stumbled backward. Nee lowered his camera, finally afraid. 20 years ago, I called upon Mommy Wada for prosperity when drought threatened our village. The chief continued. She made the crops grow, the children thrive. But her price was one soul every new moon. I thought I could outsmart her by offering animal sacrifices. What happened? I whispered, unable to look away from the faces in the water. She came for the entire village, but I had placed protection symbols in my home. I alone remained half taken, half spared. The crueler fate. The river began to bubble and churn. From its depths rose a woman impossibly beautiful, with skin that shimmered like fish scales and hair that moved like living snakes. Mommy Wada, the river goddess known in stories throughout West Africa. You have brought me new souls, Chief, she said, her voice somehow both alluring and terrifying. Our bargain continues. The chief turned to us, his expression desperate. Run. I cannot hold her long. The water began to rise, forming tendrils that reached toward us like hungry fingers. The whispers from the village rose to screams, warnings, pleas for help, offers to take our places. We ran, scrambling up the path as the water surged after us. I could feel it tugging at my feet, icy cold and somehow conscious. Behind us, the chief had thrown himself into the goddess's path, buying us seconds. Back in the village, the whispers had become a roar. Every doorway glowed with the same eerie blue light as the river. Ghostly faces pressed against invisible barriers, reaching for us. The car, Emma gasped. We need to get back to Kofi. A tendril of water shot from the ground, wrapping around Nee's ankle. He fell hard, his camera skittering across the dirt. More water emerged from the earth, forming a pool that began to pull him toward it. Help, he screamed, fingers clawing at the ground. I grabbed his arms while Emma frantically searched her backpack. She pulled out a small cloth bag of gris charm her grandmother had made. The amulet won't be enough, she said, ripping open the bag. We need a barrier. She scattered its contents, salt, herbs, tiny bones in a circle around us as I held onto Nee. The water touched the boundary she created and hissed like hot oil, retreating slightly. It won't hold long, Emma warned. We need something stronger. My mind raced, remembering my grandmother's teachings. The chief's chair, it has protection symbols. If we could reach it. A terrible laugh echoed around us. Mommy Wada's voice, closer now. Such clever children. The chief thought he was clever too. More water bubbled up from the ground, surrounding our protective circle. The blue light revealed hundreds more faces, not just villagers, but others. Decades, perhaps centuries of victims. The chair, I repeated. It's our only chance. Amma nodded. I'll strengthen the circle. You to run for the chair when I say. She began to chant words I recognized from childhood ceremonies, calling upon ancestral protection. The water retreated further. Now, she shouted. Nee and I ran, splashing through puddles of glowing water that tried to grab our ankles. We burst into the chief's house and raced to the chair. I ran my hands over the symbols carved into the wood, feeling for the activation pattern my grandmother had once described. What are you doing? Nee gasped, watching the doorway where water was beginning to seep through. Looking for there. My fingers found a sequence of symbols. I pressed them in the order my grandmother had taught: family, earth, ancestors, sky. The chair began to hum beneath my hands. The symbols glowed red, pushing back the blue light of the river goddess. Get Emma, I told Nee. He hesitated only a second before running back outside. I continued activating symbols, praying I remembered the correct sequence. If I made a mistake, the protection would fail. The humming grew louder. The entire house began to vibrate. Outside, I heard Emma scream. Nee returned, half carrying her. Her legs were wet to the knees, the flesh pale and waxy where the water had touched. Behind them, Mommy Wada herself appeared in the doorway, beautiful and terrible. Her eyes black pools of ancient hunger. You cannot escape what is owed, she said. The debt remains unpaid. The final symbol began to glow under my fingers. The chair's vibration reached a crescendo. Touch the chair! I shouted to my friends. Both of you! They lunged forward, placing their hands on the carved wood as Mommy Wada surged toward us. The moment they made contact, the world exploded in red light. I felt myself falling, then nothing. I woke to sunlight and Kofi's worried face. We were back in the car, all three of us, with no memory of how we'd gotten there. You came running down the hill just before dawn. Kofi explained, his eyes wide with fear, talking nonsense about water and ghosts. Then you all collapsed. My hands were covered in cuts from the chair's symbols. Emma's legs bore strange scale-like patterns up to her knees. Nee's camera was gone, but clutched in his hand was a small carved figure, a river goddess, its eyes closed as if sleeping. Did we dream it all? Emma whispered. I looked back toward the hill hiding Akwamu from view. In the morning light, a thin column of smoke rose from where the village should be. No, I said. We escaped, but I don't think we broke the cycle. Nee opened his hand, staring at the carving. She'll wait, and someone else will come. As if confirming his words, the carving's eyes opened tiny pinpricks of blue light that stared directly at us. A warning, a promise. Kofi managed to start the car. As we drove away, I glanced at my phone, surprised to find a single message that had somehow arrived despite the lack of signal. A debt is never forgiven, only transferred. Behind us, the whispers of Akwamu faded. For now,